Hey everybody, welcome back. Wayne here. This week we're going to finish our 4-part series on discovery or disclosure. And specifically this week we're going to talk about goals and or questions that are unique to several of the different types of affairs. We believe that infidelity creates a pain like no other and a disorientation that leaves the injured spouse unsure of their past and their identity, and even possibly their future. If you are the one who's been betrayed, you're going to want answers to a lot of questions. And without the answers to many of your questions, even most of your questions, it can be really, really difficult to get your feet back underneath you, to get your feet back on the ground. And to make matters worse, you're probably experiencing an intensity of emotions like maybe you never have before, nothing that you've ever even imagined, which will make objectivity and healing after an affair seem next to impossible. And my experience has shown that there are, in fact, practical ways to move through this crisis and not get stuck. And that's exactly what I hope to help you with, a little bit at least today. So the goals for discovery, and really it's starting out by making the process safe. You got to try to understand what happened after the discovery of an affair. It's a highly emotional process. And if the unfaithful spouse doesn't make it safe by disengaging from their affair partner, then it will be almost impossible for the betrayed to feel safe with them. And while that complicates matters, it doesn't mean that you can't get help for your situation, even if the unfaithful refuses to end the affair. But equally true is the truth that if you, the betrayed, can't control your potentially damaging reactions, you may not be safe enough for the unfaithful to share the information that you need and that they need to share in order to process all of it. And I'm not talking about you being emotional. You get to be emotional. You get to express your pain. What I'm talking about is the harming effects of emotions out of control that are damaging and harmful to yourself and to your partner and possibly your children. To begin the process of discovery, you both need to establish the necessary boundaries to make it possible for the two of you to discuss what has happened. The what at this point is really important. Let's talk about getting the right information. And until you're able to get your mind around the what has happened, there is a part of you that may continue searching for information and trying to understand your new reality and what they did and how often they did it. It is completely normal. And remember, without answers to your questions, it's really difficult, at best, to even know how to move forward. Your mind will and can run wild, imagining situations that many times have never even actually happened. But one telling question always arises. I would say this is really important. You have to decide how much and what you really want to know. And how is that information going to help your healing and get to the root of everything so that you can begin the healing journey? So with all that in mind, I want to offer some suggestions that pertain to the different types of affairs, some guidelines, if you will, some questions to help provide insight for both of you. So first, I'm going to talk about some questions that you might want answers to for physical and emotional affairs. It's just a list of questions, and it's not exhaustive. There probably are many, many others that you may think of that pertain to your situation. But we kind of think these are the basic, bare bones, important questions, and you're going to want answers to many of these. And some of them there may not be answers to, but it's at least a place to start. Is this your first affair? How many others have you had? When did it begin? Was it physical or emotional? How long have you been attracted to this person before either of you expressed your feelings for the other person? Was the affair with someone you knew? Who was responsible for initiating the affair? What did the two of you have in common? How did the two of you connect? Was an effort made to stop? If so, how? And why do you think it didn't work? Is the other person married or are they in a committed relationship? Does the affair partner's mate know, and how did they respond? When and where did you get together and how frequently? If it's a part of an overall sexual addiction, when did you act out and how frequently? Is this person someone you've known for a while? How long had you been feeling attracted to the other person prior to the affair? When did the relationship first become flirtatious? When did it become sexual, if it did? How long did the affair last? If you were sexual, how many times did the two of you have sex? From your perspective, was the relationship more emotional or was it more sexual? And how did the two of you communicate, and what was the frequency? Was there unprotected sex? Have you been tested for STDs? How much money do you think you spent on this affair or your affair partner? Did you buy your affair partner gifts? Did your affair partner buy you gifts? If they bought you gifts, what have you done with them? Has the affair ended? How did it end? When was the last time the two of you had any contact? How is this time different than other times when you've tried to end the affair? Have you contacted your affair partner since you ended it to see how they're doing? Did you decide to end the affair, or was it a joint decision, or did they end it? And what makes you think this time will be different? And what measures have you taken to make sure there will be no more contact? Who else knows about the affair? And what does your affair partner want? How do you plan to respond if your affair partner initiates any kind of contact with you? If others know, how did they find out? And what did they do? Have you been giving the affair partner any financial support? If so, what do you intend to do as you go forward? So those are just a few of questions that might be really important to you. They're typical, basic questions that you're going to probably want answers to. And like I said, it's not exhaustive. There may be others that pertain specifically to your situation. Now let's talk about sexual addiction. If it is a sexual addiction, you're going to want to know when the acting out behavior began after the marriage or even prior to the marriage. Did you ever consider telling me? If so, what stopped you from letting me know? If you were acting out with other people, did I know any of them? Or was it anonymous? How did you hook up with those people? What types of acting out behaviors have you participated in? What is the frequency? How did you keep it a secret? Was there any unprotected sex? Have you ever tried to stop? What did you do? How did those efforts turn out? Do you feel you have a problem? What do you plan on doing now? Who else knows about your acting out behavior? And how did they find out? And what do they know? And how did they respond? Have you been tested for STDs or STIs? How much money do you think you've spent on your acting out? When was the last time you acted out? When did you typically act out? Where did you typically act out? Are you willing to get help? And are there other potential complications, such as pregnancies, as a result of your acting out? So again, just a few questions in the discovery disclosure phase of this that might help you get to the root of things if there's a sexual addiction or a sexual addiction component to the infidelity. So now we're going to switch gears and talk a little bit about one-night stands. If it was a one-night stand, when did it occur? Who was it with? Where did you meet them? Where did you act out? Did you know the person before that night? And if so, had there been any flirting before that evening? What happened when you were done? Were there plans made to meet again? Are they married? Does their partner know? Are there any other possible complications at work as a result of what you did? Did you have unprotected sex? And have you been tested for an STI? Who else knows? How did they find out? Have you ever had any further contact with this person? When was the last time the two of you communicated? If there's been communication, what were the means of that communication? What's the frequency of the communication? Again, just some things to think about if there was a one-night stand. Another key element in discovery phase is I want you, the betrayed spouse, to avoid the comparison questions. I know it may sound crazy, but one thing I want you to do is refrain from those comparison questions. Specific questions about how they acted out sexually with the affair partner. These questions will only add to the already established difficulty with reminders and triggers and lots of intrusive thoughts. Also, as best as you can, avoid asking questions about the physical attributes, which could cause you to continually compare yourself against the affair partner. Remember, this is not an apples to apples comparison. These questions can't provide relevant information and will only add to those intrusive thoughts long after the affair has ended. And the urge to ask these types of questions will be strong. I know this for a fact. Please hear me when I say that this information has the potential to cause unnecessary difficulty in the healing process and then ultimately surviving the process altogether. And at this phase, the discovery disclosure phase, I want you to limit the why questions, because without some understanding of what happened, how do you determine whether there's hope to prevent this from happening again? However, there is a strong likelihood that your mate doesn't even fully understand why yet. So try not to get stuck on this question. You will get some answers, but later. In fact, why may not even be based on reality or truth or at the timing of disclosure. It will take some time and the right help before they can answer this with any degree of truth. Well, actually, any degree of truth and accuracy. As difficult as it might be to believe, most likely your mate wasn't thinking about anything other than the fact that they wouldn't get caught. If they do share their alleged interpretation and understanding of why, probably all they can share are their justifications for what they did. That's what it's going to look like then. The perspective will change and grow over time, and you'll get a better understanding of why, both of you. But that's probably a year down the road, in my opinion. I also want to encourage you not to make matters worse by making any hasty decisions. You can never tell the end of the story by the beginning of the story, which is certainly true in couples dealing with betrayal. To get the needed information, both you and your partner need to feel safe. This presents a challenge if the ensuing chaos created by the discovery leaves the two of you unable to interact. It's tempting to try to stop the pain by trying to decide what to do about the marriage. But now really isn't the time to make those decisions. Your best decision won't be made in an emotional state. Give yourself permission to try not to decide. Decide rather to commit to getting the proper help. Then you can make the informed and educated decision, what I would say in IFS terms, from your truest, highest, best self, and not from an angry or lonely or sad, devastated part of you. Ultimately, leaving your marriage may be the best course of action. But if your mate is humble and committed to change, you wouldn't be a fool to stay and be a part of the healing process. Hopefully, after the dust settles a bit, your goal may be really to find a better life in light of your new reality. You may find your best opportunity for that life is in your current relationship. And we see that over and over again. Another thing, you got to be careful about transmitting your pain. You'll find it tempting to try to make your partner hurt as badly as you hurt during this process of discovery and even in the early days of recovery. Unfortunately, it will not help you feel better in the long run. In fact, you'll only end up hurting yourself. And what I see a lot of times is couples just continue to traumatize themselves and each other as they transmit their pain towards one another. I get it and I understand it, but it's not quite helpful. And as you learn what they've done, you may be tempted to retaliate by doing the same thing so they can discover how it feels. But really, you'll only continue to hurt yourself and your spouse and maybe your children. Remember, pain that's not transformed will be transmitted. And the last thing you want is to transmit your pain to other innocent parties. It's not fair, and you did nothing to deserve this. But hopefully, you can be the one that begins to respond in a way to heal the pain by grieving all the little losses and what has happened, and try not to attack them for answering the questions and then being honest. This is critical in the discovery process and can pave the way to a true and genuine healing. Another thing to avoid is letting your emotions run unchecked. Anger is totally understandable, and you didn't deserve this. But failure to keep your anger under control leaves both you and your mate at risk. Take care of yourself by setting safe boundaries with your mate, but don't allow yourself to behave in a way that can get you in trouble with the law. Domestic violence is one of the biggest problems in our country, and it's against the law. And even if your mate has had an affair, you need to keep your anger in check. Some of you may have already heard that anger is the secondary emotion. It's not the primary. It's also the way that we show up and we protect ourselves. And if you can get to that vulnerable feelings and emotions like sadness and hurt and fear, shame, whatever those vulnerable emotions are that you're feeling, probably some of all of that and maybe many more, express those and see if your anger doesn't subside so that you're not just white knuckling it. Another obstacle is refusing to get help. You didn't cause this, and it probably seems grossly unfair for you to have to do anything to fix it, much less get help. But consider for a minute the situation where you are driving a car involved in a wreck and your child was injured. Even though they didn't cause the wreck, they may still need physical therapy to overcome an injury. In the same way, moving beyond this injury may require outside help. Don't let pride get in your way of getting the help that you need to find healing and a better, more meaningful and purposeful life. Don't let your desire to punish your mate keep you from healing that you desperately need. Surviving this nightmare called infidelity requires humility, rational behavior, and a decision to get the needed help. Another sticking point or an area to avoid is don't try to get your wayward spouse to get it. That will just lead to resentment and avoidance most of the time. They're going to get it if they want to, and hopefully if you're both getting some help, a therapist or a group leader will do everything they can to help them get it, to help them do the work that they need to do so that you don't have to. I know it's really tempting, but at this stage, it really will drive a wedge. Lecturing puts you in this parent-to-child interaction, which will only inhibit further communication and frustrate both of you during this process. Don't tell them what they're feeling or what their motivation for what they've done. Telling them what they are feeling or why they did it won't allow for safe communication down the road. If you want the information, listen to what they have to say and try to make it safe enough for them to talk to you. I would say the other thing about trying to help them get it and understand right now is that anything that comes out of their mouth is most likely going to sound like a justification to you or blaming you. And that's not helpful for either one of you right now. Please try to be patient. Finding the right expert help can minimize any further trauma and provide some much needed direction for you and possibly your family. If you are a betrayed spouse, I want you to know more than anything that you are not alone. And I want you to also know that there is hope for your healing regardless of what happens to your marriage. I certainly hope that your marriage is going to work out. I have a lot of hope for that. One of the most important keys, though, to your healing is having an infidelity-specific counselor or some guidance and a community to walk you through the process. So I urge you to consider joining or checking out the Harboring Hope group, where we not only seek to help betrayed spouses, but also transform your pain into something purposeful and life-giving and renewing, and also find life for your marriage as well. You can find out all the details on the Affair Recovery website under the Programs tab. So thanks so much for joining me again this week. It's always good to be with you. Know that we at Affair Recovery are hoping for and praying for the best for all of you, regardless of which role you play in. Thanks again for being here with me. I'll be back again next week. And until then, stay safe and healthy.